Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG. It's the show where longtime Mac Apple users come together to share practical tips, everyday workflows, and honest takes on Apple technology. I'm Marty Gensius, and tonight we're diving into something every Apple user relies on, but may not be getting the most out of, and that is the built-in calendar app. Whether you're managing a busy work schedule, coordinating family events, or just trying to remember when the trash goes out. Trash every week, Sunday night. Recyclables every week, every other Sunday night. That's how it is in our family. But if it's on my calendar, I can remember which Sunday night I'm supposed to take those recyclables out. So we're going to talk a lot about calendars, how you do multiple calendars, how you color code calendars, how you can share calendars, and subscribing to public calendars, which are lots of fun if you haven't done that yet. So let's find out who our panel is. We start with Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie Lindahl in Houston, Texas, retired. I've been using Mac stuff since 1984. And even a little bit before that, I was actually on a Lisa. And I have an MacBook Pro M1. I have AirPod 3s. My iPhone 16, which I love. And most recently, I have a Vision Pro, which I definitely love. And I love being with the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. Retired for almost 10 years, and I've also been around the Mac since 1984, and spent a lot of time with Apple user groups in the Dallas area and then in the Austin area. Then had a chance to work for Apple, and then did some university IT. So I had lots of fun over the years, and now I'm retired, got lots of Apple toys, and enjoy being part of the Old Mac Gang. Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Wood, and I'm also in Tucson. I have been a Mac user since the early point of System 7, and I've been a Mac user group leader almost all of that time. And I'm happy to be in Tucson, where you can see the wonderful sunset behind me, and no longer in the frozen tundra of Wisconsin. Marty?
Well, I think that's Wisconsin's loss, that Bob has moved out of the state. Well, tonight we're going to talk about calendars, and I'm glad to be able to have this conversation. We've got a good crew together with us to talk about this. There is we've got quite a few show links. So you can catch the show links in the show notes of the published episode, both the podcast version of it and the video version of this. When we publish it in the show notes, you'll get all the links. These are just good helping articles on how to get the most out of calendars and how to set that up. So I'm going to start with MacMost. And Gary does a wonderful job in MacMost talking about how to do colors in calendars if you want to make different calendars different colors and how to change that. Then a general article here about from Macworld, how to color code events in Apple Calendar. And then IDB, which is iDownload blog, has an article again, how to change colors on the iPhone, iPad, and on the Mac. And iMore has an article on how to make iCloud calendars public on the phone or the iPad, so if you want to use those devices. How to subscribe to calendars on iPhone or iPad is a Mac Rumors article that we have, and how to subscribe to public calendars on OS X Daily. Public calendars are those kinds of things that sports teams, events, things that are coming up. So if you want to have those incorporated, you can generally find the calendar feed for that and then just put that in your calendar. Then a great article about the kind of exclusive things that features that are available for the calendar app if you want to get into those kinds of options. So, guys, let's start out with the first question, and it goes to Charlie. How many calendars do you actually run? And what are they? Are they work, home, travel, or something more creative?
I run several personal calendars, including sharing with my stepson. And it's kind of nice to know where he is, and he knows where I am. And I try and keep up to date on it. So that's very handy. Let's see. I run a couple of different user groups and interest groups, and I run that for all of them. I use my Apple Calendar as my main client, but some of the servers are Google Calendar, and I don't see any problem with using those, and that's kind of a nice feature. The other thing that I do, which really helps, is when I do my calendar entries, I definitely make sure I keep track of the location. So I always put the full address in the calendar entry, so then I can copy it and flip it directly into my Google Maps. Same thing with Zoom, as I always put the Zoom address in the calendar entry, even though I've got it in multiple places, because that way I can just access my event and be able to know where to go or what links to use. I have another question for the group, and I think we were trying to answer it last week. I don't know if I got a good answer, and that is I do have colors, but I don't know how to display a calendar to have separate windows for each calendar of each color. So I'd like to throw it out to the group and have them answer that.
I'm going to turn it to Chris, and maybe Chris has an answer for that, or we can think about it.
You know, I checked this out before, and I ended up having multiple calendar windows open. But then I went back and tried to figure out how I had actually opened those. And to be honest, I'm
That's what
not
I'm asking.
sure if I double clicked on them or something. But yeah, I hear you, Charlie. It'd be nice to have separate windows for different calendars. I mean, for me, color has always been a driver, and we'll talk more about
Yeah.
that. But to get back to Marty's question, I probably started, System 7 was near and dear to my heart because that's the reason I got a job at Apple in Austin, Texas, was they decided that they needed a new support system for System 7 because it was so much more complex than System 6. And so I probably started running the calendar there. And I probably collected, I think, 40 calendars over the years. I mean, most of these might have been short run, they might have been projects, they might have been different work things, and it was largely driven by color. So when I would look at my calendar, I see the different colors and get a sense of what kind of activities I had coming up and that sort of thing. Nowadays, my active calendars are home, family, health is a real big one, friends, another real big one, financial stuff like Quicken and so on, tech, education for Zoom classes and stuff, and then photography for my camera club. And each one has its own colors. For instance, the health calendar is in bright magenta. And you can also customize some of these colors, so you can get a lot more than the standard colors with the picker. And of course, nowadays we can store Zoom links as well into the calendar. And so, you know, that'll just be immediately available, as well as double clicking on a location for a meeting. In Apple Maps, it just brings it right up. So no need to copy and paste. Although I hear Google Maps, I use it too. So I think that's it for this question. Bob?
Hi, I only use Apple's calendar.app. Some other people might use a different interface to it, like Fantastical. But when I say different calendars, I'm talking about sub calendars. In in the Apple's Calendar app. I just took a look, and the number I'm running right now is 13. But upon further review, there are some that are currently unused. I'm now down to 10, and 4 of those are subscribed calendars, which we'll get into later. That leaves 6: birthdays, home, work, travel, and Zoomin. At my advanced age, it's probably should also add a doctor-specific calendar,
Yeah.
as we are of an age where more and more time is devoted to healthcare. I often add an appropriate emoji at the beginning of the calendar event title, such as a doctor or a ambulance before a doctor's appointment. I just saw the dentist this week, and there's a big old tooth in front of Madeira Dental, uh, because it makes it easier for me to see when looking at a calendar on a small screen. Or a barber pole for a haircut appointment, and a sponge for the house cleaning event, and a heart or flowers for our anniversary or her birthday. Marty?
Yeah, since we've been talking about this, and since we have been talking about it since last week, I've been trying to get everything over to the Apple Calendar. But frankly, I use Fantastical, and it's hard for me to break away from that because it integrates iCal, Google, and Outlook. And if I wasn't receiving calendar requests and appointments through Microsoft Outlook, that then will appear in my calendar, Outlook's calendar, and then to Fantastical, I would probably just move everything over to the Apple Calendar. Prior to Fantastical, for a long time, I used BusyCal. It's still on the market, and I played around with it. It's still very viable, but I'm kind of settled on Fantastical. Now, I have calendars, too many, based on work or based on projects that I've been on. You know, a grant that I was on where we had activities for the people who were here on the grant from 2022. That calendar is still in my listing. However, it's not active because I don't go back to 2022. So you can turn calendars on and off. And currently, I probably have about 20 active calendars. Some of that is because they're duplicates from different calendar inputs. And so I have to kind of clear off some of them just to reduce the duplicity with them. I have a hold section, which is used the most. That's when I get appointments or requests for appointments, and people will say, well, I could do it this day over these 3 hours, this day over these 3 hours, or this day, and I'll get back to you. I'll use hold, and it's yellow, which is, I guess, caution. And I'll block out that time for the purpose of waiting to hear what the response is going to be and what time it's actually going to happen. When that happens, then I change it to a meeting appointment and get rid of the hold on that calendar, so I have it open for that. I went through and tried to slim down some of the duplicates in the calendars and have been able to do that, I think, successfully. Probably just need to archive some of those so they're still there but not there, if you know what I mean, or put them as hidden so they're not showing up in my menus, but they're still a portion of what's there. So that's what we have for the first question. The second question is, do you color code your calendars? What system do you use, and does it actually help you at a glance? And we go to Charlie again.
Hi, I don't use much. I do use minimally the color thing. I mainly use it to flag events that my stepson might be interested in, and that lets me look at a given day as to where he and I might be at home at the same time. But I don't use it I don't use it extensively. I do say that I do have colors attached to holidays and to birthdays. So that helps me look at a glance, even on my phone, as to important, anniversary holidays.
Chris?
Yeah, I've I've been using colors since they first became available, and I think it was, gosh, if memory serves, it was like the second or third rev of the calendar app, and I couldn't tell you which OS it was in. That suddenly supported colors, and I thought, whoa, that's the way I want to go. And then I realized, oh, in order to get a color, I had to create a separate calendar, and so I sort of munged on that for a little while and decided, well, what the heck, why not? So that's how I started getting all these different calendars. But I just wanted to add that, Marty, I totally get what you're saying in terms of Outlook, because we ran an Exchange server at School of Ed for a long time at the university. And, in order for that to work, I was using the Outlook client, and I really fell in love with its focused inbox, which was enormously helpful for me because even in my work account, I got a bunch of junk mail, and I mean, stuff that sort of didn't matter. And I needed to separate the wheat from the chaff. And when you're a support person, you don't miss an email from a faculty. It's just not a good thing. As Marty can attest, doesn't make for happy faculty members. So, I was really beholden to the focused inbox. And then I would use the calendar in Outlook for all my work stuff, which was sort of then separate from my personal stuff on the Apple calendar. So that worked out for a while, but I used to see the developer from Fantastical at every Macworld over, 6+ years, and I must have seen his demo, I don't know how many times, and it's probably the number one app I never bought, but came really close to. So it's a wonderful app, by the way. I never used BusyCal, so I can't say, but for anybody that it applies to, I mean, Fantastical is a great app.
Yeah.
So,
Bob?
Bob.
Yes, I do use colors pretty extensively. But what I don't do is I don't tell myself, gee, today I'm going to look at the blue calendar event. Rather, I feel that it can be helpful at looking in the month view to see what events relate to each other. So I do use them, but I use them cautiously. Marty?
Yeah, I'm colorblind or color dumb, if I think is the term, where I can see differences between colors, but it has to be very definitive hues in order for me to see it. So a lot of the calendar choices for colors are really light pastels. And at least in my eye, there's not a lot of discrimination between the light pink pastel and the light blue pastel. Those kind of things are difficult for me. So I choose the hardest colors that I can find for my eyes. By that I mean I choose like red. Red is all of my class, when I have to be in class, all of my class dates and times, they're in my calendar in red. So I know that's kind of stop, if you want to say that. My meetings are in like a black. I mean, there is kind of a black that you can code through your calendar, and that again brings out a definitive color. I mentioned the yellow before with holding sections out. That's very light. It also means that other events that come in that same area can be seen underneath it or through it. So so I do use colors, but I'm running out of colors for the amount of different calendars that I have. There's just not enough of a strong dark color in a bunch of different hues for me to choose to be able for it to be effective. So the next question that we have is, do you share any calendars with family members, colleagues, or a partner? And how do you set those up, and what do you use them for? We're going to go to Chris first on this one.
Oh, okay. Well, I already mentioned the Microsoft Exchange system. Um, and my wife has always been a PC Android person. So I haven't done a lot of calendar sharing. I did at work, of course. We had shared calendars and stuff like that. And so I've run into things over the years where sharing cross platform could be interesting. Of course, Exchange took care of that. And I just haven't a lot in terms of subscriptions, but that's coming up next. So I think I'll pass it off to Bob here.
Yes, I do share calendars. I share the Zoom calendar with my wife, so she knows when I will be unavailable for conversation, TV watching, or chores that she might like to assign to me. We started this when lockdown happened and the rise of Zoom meetings. At that time, our internet service was DSL, and it was so slow that if one of us could be on Zoom and the other could be watching a streaming service, the connections could be compromised. Thankfully, that part of it has been resolved. We should probably create and share doctors' calendars with each other.
For me, I try to share them with folks. Like I share my doctor's appointments. When I was going through a cancer diagnosis, there was a calendar I created that was dad's appointments. And I shared that with my son, shared that with my daughter, and shared it with my wife because they wanted to be there if they could be there for support. And I got attention. I mean, they paid good attention to that calendar. I have been working with my wife to try and do shared appointments for her calendars, and she's at the point where don't need to learn new stuff, just need to tell you. And so the way she keeps her calendar appointments now is basically to put them in her notes and on her phone, and that doesn't help me very much. So the effort's still on to be able to create a shared calendar with her particular appointments, particularly with eye appointments where she's not going to be able to drive home from the eye doctor. So that falls on me. So that needs to be put together and set up in a way that works. Okay, we'll move on to the last question. Have you discovered the world of public calendars and public calendar subscriptions? What feeds do you follow? And what would you subscribe to if you could find it? And we go to Chris.
I used to do calendar subscriptions. I mean, the usual things like holidays, and other holidays like, Marty, you mentioned the Islamic calendar and other stuff. And those were all fun and astrological stuff and birthdays and so on. Nowadays, with Apple's data detectors, it's just in my life being a retiree, there isn't much I would really be subscribing to. But data detectors are a huge help because that's a little pop down when it sees a date in an email that says, on, I don't know, April 20th at 9 a.m., there's going to be a Zoom somewhere. And I can usually just punch that right into my calendar, which is actually was very subtle when it first came out. And it got a big yawn for me. And then nowadays, I realize how important those are. So some of those little incremental changes really add up over time. But let's see. I think that's pretty much all I have on that. Bob?
I do have subscribed calendars. I subscribe to a moon phase and astronomical events calendar. This one I searched for back before the rise of AI. And here in Tucson, we have pretty darn dark skies. And Therefore, knowing some of the astronomical events that are happening in our clear, dark skies is of interest to me. A couple of Tucson Macintosh user group related calendars for meeting announcements are also something I subscribe to. And through our forums provider, which is groups.io, each forum has a calendar, and you can put your events in that calendar and then automatically subscribe to it, and they show up in calendars.app. What calendars would I like to subscribe to and have not yet found? I would like to subscribe to a USPS holidays calendar, because sometimes it's hard to figure out when the post office is going to be delivering or not. But I don't think it's currently offered, and don't get me started on the post office. Marty?
Okay. Well, I have subscribed to U.S. holiday calendars. Part of the problem is I subscribe to it on Google, then I subscribe to it on Apple Calendar, and then I subscribe to it on Fantastical, and suddenly I have 3 Christmases in one day showing up on my calendar. So the U.S. holidays are important to me. Since I have a lot of international connections and worked with a lot of international teachers, many of them coming from Muslim countries, I have been working and keep with me the calendar for Muslim holidays, because it tells me when people are going to be there and when people are going to be available if it's communication with them. So things like Ramadan, things like other types of like Turkey has a holiday that's just for, it's like youth athletics holiday, and the whole country shuts down for that, as it is off. And it's very important. They do a lot of things in terms of celebrating that. So I don't attempt to make contacts when that stuff shows up on my calendar. The Bears, the Chicago Bears, I grew up in Chicago, and with that, I still follow the Bears. I don't get to watch them as much. Don't want to watch them as much sometimes. Actually, they're doing better than the Cubs right now. And the last one is the Cubs games. That's something that I have in my calendar and got on a weird calendar feed, which has them playing in the middle of the night. And I've been trying to figure out how to get it off of my calendar, and have gone through the 3 different inputs for the calendar, removing the MLB, removing the Cubs, but it stays there. It's persistent. And frankly, they'd be doing a better job right now if they were playing in the middle of the night. But most recently, F1. F1 has, if you have Apple TV has that as a benefit for folks who want to watch F1. They're doing it upright, and if you have a Vision Pro headset, it's really quite easy and quite good to be able to watch it through the Vision Pro headset. So I've gotten kind of addicted to it, and the games were the races right now are on the other side of the world, so they're in the middle of the night, like apparently my Cubs are, and I enjoy watching a race when I can get to see a race on it. So put it on my calendar as a reminder. So yeah, I enjoy them. I can't tell you which ones I could think of if they had one, because all you can do if you want to follow your favorite team, for example, on a calendar, all you have to do is Google and ask for the calendar, and often you'll see the little add to your calendar, and it will put the whole schedule in your calendar for a team that you want. It's like an RSS kind of thing, so it changes as the dates change and the days change for games and things like that. And it does it automatically, so you don't have to do that. So if you're looking for a particular calendar or something that's a regular event or a cyclical event, then you can, I'm going to suggest that you just do a Google search. You'll be surprised what calendars and event calendars are out there if you'd like to do that. Well, thank you, Bo. Oh, yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, you reminded me that MLS, Major League Soccer, is also now free
Yep.
on Apple TV, which is really a bonus. I mean, I've been a soccer fan all my life, and I'm very pleased to say that the United States is very close to world-class soccer now. In fact, when they had the championships for MLS last fall, Messi had them, I am assuming Messi drove this, that it was they were played at 2:30 p.m. in Miami so that they would be visible at a reasonable hour throughout South America and Europe and Africa.
Yeah.
And fortunately, Messi had a phenomenal game and, scored or assisted in several goals. They won the championship, and he looked like the old Leo Messi from Barcelona. But at any rate, so that's available. I'm going to try Googling some of this because we've got the World Cup coming up as well. And it's nice to know in advance. The other thing, and I haven't watched any F1, but with Apple TV has done a really good job of actually showing the games in terms of where the cameras are, and it's quite a bit more sophisticated. If you haven't seen a soccer game on TV recently, you might want to take a look at one of these because it's a lot more compelling to watch, just from the camera angles and the replays and so on. There's also a totally separate feed in Spanish if you are so inclined, although be forewarned, they speak pretty quickly. But it's a lot of fun because it's very much, I mean, they refer to the players as, Uruguayo and, Peruviano and stuff like that, as the Peruvian, the Uruguayan, because they know who the players are. They know them upside down and backwards. And so they refer to them a little bit differently than we do in English. But it's a lot of fun. And so I'm actually enjoying that a lot. So thanks for the suggestion, Marty. I'll look up some of those teams.
Yeah, well, I hope you listeners or viewers take the opportunity to find, to look for calendars and use calendars for some of these events. If you have a sporting group or some other event that you're interested in, or holidays that you're interested in putting into your calendar, please look for those opportunities and enhance your use of the Apple Calendar app. I want to end off and wrap the show up, but before I do, I would like to remind folks, and this is something new that we haven't talked about on this show yet, that MacStock is coming up. MacStock Conference and Expo is coming up on July 10th, 11th, and 12th, and it is in Crystal Lake, Illinois, which is close to Woodstock, Illinois, hence the name MacStock. The theme for it is Inspire. We are going to be having a special guest that has been added to it, David Pogue, who recently wrote the book Apple, The First 50 Years. And he'll be there my understanding is he'll be there for the whole conference. And he'll be there, and we're going to have an evening with him. He's going to do a book signing, and we're just going to have a great time with it. I'm presenting at MacStock. Bob is always there. Bob has been there as long as I can remember. And so we'll have some great folks joining us, and really just great presentations, and then these workshops. They're also doing an eCam workshop the day before the program starts. So there are 2 passes that you can consider buying. You can get the MacStock weekend pass for 3 days. That's the conference. That's 3 days of expert presentations, digital sessions, and materials. For a free digital pass, which allows you to go back and look at the recorded versions of the sessions. But you can add on the July 9th eCam Creator Camp if you want to. So you have 2 different, you have an extended sort of workshop with that if you want to do it. You can find out all the information about it at MacStock conferenceandexpo.com. I'll put this in the show notes for folks who want to know more about it. And here's the extra secret advantage because you've been listening to the Old Mac Gang. And frankly, any of the Pod Talk shows, if you're listening to them, you can use a code Pod Talk when you are checking out, and it'll give you an option to put that in, and you will get $50 off your registration. Pod Talk, it doesn't have to be, it's not case sensitive, but just Pod Talk will give you a discount on your registration if you want to join us in Crystal Lake. That's just outside of Chicago, about 40 minutes to get there from O'Hare, the north side of Chicago. So yeah, you should check out Macstock conferenceandexpo.com. And again, all the information, including the discount code, will be in the show notes of the show. So thank you guys for joining us. We lost Charlie. I got a text message from through channels and that he had his power dropped on his device that he was using to be part of it. And by the time he got in, we were getting ready to close. So sorry about that happening with you, Charlie, but we continued on with the show, and we'll catch you next time. I do want to mention, for those who do follow other of the Pod Talk shows, we are doing our 100th show of Vision Profiles coming up this Monday night. And so join us for that. I'm going to try and do some setup where we can have drop in and have some folks from the Mac network kind of come in and join us for little bits and pieces if they're willing to do that. But it's our 100th show. We are doing our 66th show here with Old Mac Gang. So it just keeps moving along, and that's really great. Sorry about what happened with Charlie. Peter is out traveling this week. We might have a full gang back next week in terms of the Old Mac Gang. So take a look at the calendar and your calendar app and see what you can do, what kind of new things you can do with it. Look at the links that are in the show notes. You can find them at youtube.com/oldmacgang. You'll find the show posted with the show notes in it. You can also find it on the podcast version in the show notes posted. You can email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com, and our website with this show and a bunch of other shows that I do, you can find it at thepodtalk.net. Take a look at those and maybe pick up on a new one that you want to listen to. Thanks to our listeners. Thanks to our Old Mac Gang. And for those of you who are listening to this either live or rebroadcast or just the audio portion of it, because you're listening, you're now part of the Old Mac Gang.